Hello, I'm Derek Kirkendall, Executive Director of Providence Network. On behalf of the Board of Directors, the staff, and the residents of Providence Network, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. We exist to help men, women, and families heal from addictions, abuse, and homelessness. We hope today that you're drawn closer to our ministry and you see this through the stories of changed lives and a vision cast for the future of the ministry and the city. Lately, we in the Providence Network community have been discussing what it means to feel welcome. Welcome to live in one of our homes. Welcome to be part of a family. Welcome to belong. I remember what it was like coming home when I was growing up. I felt known, loved, and accepted. Plus, my mom served my favorite meals and Dad shot hoops with me in the driveway. Now, my wife Alex and I get to welcome our own daughters at home and create a safe environment for them to grow, learn, and become the women we pray they will be. Welcoming strangers into our lives can feel risky, vulnerable. But that's exactly what we ask of our staff and residents when they move into one of our homes. And the end result can be a beautiful thing. The deep bonds of friendship, the relationships they form, produce a family environment where challenges are supported and accomplishments celebrated. To those of you who have been longtime partners and friends of our community, welcome back. To those of you who are new to us, welcome to the family.
Welcome, an invitation that expresses acceptance and hospitality. We use it often, usually when we're inviting a friend or family member into our home. But how much more compelling is it when we welcome a stranger? For over 27 years, Providence Network has been welcoming homeless strangers. As Matthew 25 says, "I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me." At Providence House and Joy House, our First Step homes, we begin by providing a person's most basic needs: safety, security, a home, meals, comfort. The stranger that came to our door becomes a member of our family. Our 24/7 live-in staff members offer a real-life model for healthy, safe, loving relationships. As case managers, they focus on life skills training, career development, and spiritual nurturing. Counselors provide one-on-one and group counseling to meet individual needs of our adults and their children. Our homes are filled with men, women, and children who have lived through traumatic experiences and lifetimes filled with abuse and neglect. Healing takes time, but in the safety of our homes, they welcome the freedom that healthy relationships offer. We love celebrating residents and their milestones. And after 18 to 24 months in our First Step homes, we're so excited to see them graduate. Truly, there are no words to describe it. They now have the opportunity to continue in their recovery in a safe, substance-free apartment community, our Next Step homes, Victory House and Clausen House. Friendships continue as staff and fellow residents are available for accountability and encouragement. Here they raise their families in a healthy community, create traditions, pursue unique gifts, pray together, and support one another. The King will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did for me." Welcome home.
Hi, I'm Beth Bradshaw. 2 years ago, I was one of those strangers. I was broken, very broken, and the staff of Joy House welcomed me in. Last week, I graduated from their 2-year First Step program, and this past Saturday, my son Liam and I moved into Victory House, one of the Next Step communities. That was a glorious day, and I'd like to share how I got there with you. Many who come to Providence Network have not grown up in a happy, loving family, but I did. My dad worked hard to provide for his family, yet was still involved in our lives, and my stay-at-home mother loved her 3 daughters. I'm the middle child and am very close with both of my sisters. Life, as long as I can remember, was Sunday school, Bible studies, and potlucks. I made the decision to accept Christ into my heart and be baptized at the age of 13. Through junior high and high school, I was very involved in youth group and mission trips. However, when I was 17 years old, at the end of my junior year, my world turned upside down. I went to Columbine High School, where 2 unstable senior boys went on a horrific shooting rampage throughout the school. 13 people died that day before the shooters turned their guns on themselves. Suddenly, the nice school I attended resembled only evil and death, and my idea of safety disintegrated around me. It was like a war. It was loud. I had never heard a gunshot before, but the moment I did, I knew it was real. I saw pure chaos before me, students running frantically in every direction with looks of terror on their faces. Fire alarms shrieked and sprinklers rained over us as the halls began to fill with smoke from all the pipe bombs. I ran for my life as shots were being fired directly over my head. I began to notice bodies on the ground, some alive, pretending to be dead, some already dead. Everything felt like slow motion. The girl running directly behind me was shot. The glass on the door I was about to exit was shot out and shattered right before me. Needless to say, I suffered from post-traumatic stress. I walked around like a zombie for the next several months, attending countless memorials and funerals. As time passed, I grew angry and did not want to talk about it or hear about it anymore. My senior year was nothing but a constant reminder of that terrifying day. I walked away from God and adopted a new lifestyle. Along with the trauma from Columbine, this was the perfect setup for the perfect storm. I eventually moved downtown to an apartment and began to date some seriously questionable men. While attempting to go to school at Metro, I tried more and more drugs while constantly drinking with friends. Over the next 8 years, I dropped out of school and became a junkie to every narcotic and opiate I could get my hands on. I met John while drunk and high at an amusement park. We began to partying and sleeping together immediately, though he showed very abusive signs from the beginning. I discovered I was pregnant with my son Liam only a few months after we met. I felt pressure to marry John, even though I knew in my heart he was not the man God intended for me. It felt wrong, and I wasn't happy. Little did I know it was about to get much worse. When Liam was born, he brought me so much joy, a pure kind that I hadn't experienced for a long time. It was always me and Liam since the day he was born, and we grew closer as I distanced myself from John the best I could. I learned fairly quickly just how much of an alcoholic and abusive person John was while Liam was still a baby. One night, I merely suggested to him that perhaps it should be his last beer for the night, when he became furious and threw his cup of beer all over me and Liam, who I was holding at the time. His newborn son was drenched in beer. My heart broke on so many levels. This type of behavior continued for the next 5 years of our marriage. My drug use steadily increased, but I also began to pray, asking God to wake me up in the morning. I prayed that he would not let my son be left with no mother and an alcoholic father. My life was spared as I made the decision to protect my son and divorce John. After seeking treatment for my addictions, I learned about Joy House. I waited and prayed for a spot to open if it was in God's will. In his perfect timing, I moved into Joy House in September 2013. I cannot begin to describe all of the changes the Lord has made in me since then and how the staff of Joy House provided the nurturing environment that I needed. My counselor listened patiently as I worked through past trauma, while the child play therapist loved on Liam. My care coordinator met with me regularly, and together we created a plan that would lead me to a healthy, stable life. I developed a beautiful friendship with her, as well as other staff and residents that I will continue to enjoy for years to come. I also have an amazing job where people care about me and encourage me. I have allowed God to work in my life because I never want to be the person I was ever again. He has reminded me of who I am in him, my true identity. He is teaching me integrity, love and forgiveness, trust, boundaries, and that I am safe in him. He knew how much I needed Joy House to help me become the woman he created me to be. At Victory House, a supporting, loving community surrounds us. where there are Bible studies and social gatherings with people who I know and love. Most importantly, Liam is safe and happy, and it's a place we can call home. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new."
Wow. Beth, thank you for sharing your story and for being so brave and doing the hard work that it takes. Thank you. And we're pleased that you're going to take that next step and move into Victory House with us, and look forward to seeing how God continues to grow you and Liam together there. As Beth shared, our homes are a place where healing and transformation can take place. The despair our residents feel before coming to us shifts towards hope and relief when they move in and find friends who are willing to walk alongside them as they summon the courage to face their challenges and seek recovery. Unfortunately, there are many who still feel abandoned and alone in our city. In fact, the number of homeless youth specifically is growing, and we feel called to reach out to this particular segment of our community. I'd like to share some updates on the vision and goals that we've been building over the last year. If you were here last year, or if you received our annual report in the mail recently, you are aware that we plan to open a new First Step home for transitioning youth ages 18 to 25. Many of these young people are coming out of the foster care system. And we have developed a partnership with Dry Bones, a local outreach ministry. They do the outreach, we do the housing. Many of their staff and board members are here with us today. Guys, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. Dry Bones as a ministry team has spent over 12 years developing relationships with Denver's street youth, meeting the physical and spiritual needs of this vulnerable population that is easily glanced over in our society. Their understanding of this population will help us create a program that is relevant and effective, while we continue to do what we do best, provide a safe, welcoming home filled with staff who want nothing more than to love them as they step out into faith to overcome their past and discover their full potential through Christ. After nearly 2 years of searching for the right place to serve these young people and working through layers and layers of city protocol, last week, just this last week, we were approved by the city of Denver to make this beautiful building, I think it's going to pop up here in a second, this beautiful building right there, their new home. This building really is one of Denver's gems. And let me tell you, finding it and securing it has been quite a journey of faith and a test of patience. Many of you in this room have helped in significant ways through prayer, time, and by giving generously to help get us this far. In fact, one of the biggest champions of this project has been an unlikely advocate, and that is the seller. The gentleman, Jim Chandler, who is selling this home to us, is here today joining us. Jim is only the second owner of this nearly 120-year-old home. He has been committed to making this project happen despite surprises and delays with the city. For all this, for you and for Jim, we're very grateful because we see our future happening here. Now that we have the property approved and we are nearing closing, we need to make it a home. This will require continued prayer and fundraising to cover renovations, staffing, and other operational costs. So far, as of today, we've raised $1.1 million and have another $700,000 to go in order to complete the necessary building codes and renovations to bring this historic Denver home up to today's building standards to house 20 people. We have been exploring this partnership opportunity with Dry Bones for years, and we're excited to see our mutual vision take shape. We believe the synergies of combining the efforts of two successful ministries for one overall mission will be extremely effective. As our previous video indicated, we offer this continuum of care, one that starts with our first step, transitional homes, and continues with our next step, apartment communities, where residents make their own home among staff, mentors, and other graduates, which then contributes greatly to their stability and longer-term success. In a world where many don't even know their neighbors, our homes are modeling true community living. This next video highlights a few of our recent graduates and how our unique, quote, life on life housing program has impacted their lives.
My name is Richard Beavis. I came to Providence House in April of 2013. It was the last house on the block for me. It didn't take long at all before the staff began to pour God's love into my life, and my transformation began.
I'm Tiffany Middleton. 16 or 17 years of addiction brought me to Prov. I was broken, I was homeless, I was selling myself on Colfax, and I got locked up in jail, and God said, I'm gonna get you sober, I'm gonna give you some clarity, I'm gonna bring your dad back into your life, and I found out about Providence House.
My name is Christopher Middleton. I came to Providence House after a long battle with alcohol, and a counselor suggested that maybe a faith-based program would help me out more. I came to one of the orientations and prayed on it, and I had been accepted. That was the first sign of hope I'd had in a really, really long time.
I could feel it as soon as I walked into that house, that God was there. And these people didn't even know me, and they hugged me when I first came into my interview. It's like, welcome, 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 welcome. And I remember the first night that I was there, I had this beautiful room and freshly painted, and people that I didn't know had left me a card in like a welcome basket with coffee, and I sat there crying. I was crying, and I had a brand new set of sheets that Jen brought up for me. I'm like, are these mine? Like, what? These are mine? Who do I have to share this room with? Like, this is all for me? And it was wonderful.
Graduation from Providence House didn't mean graduation from recovery. Today I live at Victory House, the Providence Network's next step housing. At first I thought 2 years, it's long enough, and I don't want to be subjected to rules and regulations anymore. But then I started to pray about it, and I thought, I do want to stay connected. I do want to give back.
When I graduated from Prov, I moved into Victory, which is next step housing. It was made a priority that was going to be another community and another family, and it was just an extension of Providence House. I was encouraged to take part in that. I was encouraged to welcome people into Victory, try to start Bible studies or potlucks or things like that. I was engaged to Christopher. We met at Providence House, And we got married in December of last year. And then I moved in here to Clawson with him once we got married. Just like Providence House and Victory House, welcomed the same way with big, huge open arms. And it's just surrounded by the same people that I lived with at Prov, and it's fantastic.
It was like reuniting with old friends, and now we live in the same community. The best way to describe it is one big happy family. What makes me feel welcome at Providence House and at Victory House is love with no strings attached.
Every day is just a blessing. It's hope every single day.
My life before Providence Network, I'd honestly have to say was undetermined between life or death every day. And without Providence, I wouldn't be here today. My biggest fear was that I'd go back and drink. I had nothing to go back to, and Providence became my family. I don't know if I'd ever have a life outside this. I don't know what it would ever look like to walk away from this family. I don't think I could ever do it.
My life was transformed. Providence Network gave God the opportunity to change all that. I might be biased, but I don't think that you'll find a more worthy cause.
Can't find a more worthy cause. Thank you, Richard, for that plug. We did not ask him to say that on camera. It truly came naturally. Richard, Chris, and Tiffany, the stars of this video, are actually here with us today. Would you three mind standing up? Where are you seated? Over here. Thank you. Thank you for being part of the video, but also being brave and sharing your story with us. We've celebrated several graduations this year, which means we've witnessed many lives transformed. The side effect of all this success is that our next step communities are close to capacity, and we need to add more units for future graduates. We will have an increased need for next step housing with the addition of our first step home in order to provide them with a continuum of care. Our growth strategy not only includes the new first step home for transitioning youth, but also another next step home to accommodate the rising success of our programs and the addition of the young adults. We have plans of adding another apartment building within the next 2 years with at least 20 units. Next step housing is not only critical to our mission of moving individuals and families through the change process all the way to stability, but financially, the rents collected cover the costs of the apartment building and go back to the general fund of the organization, helping to offset the costs of the first step homes and creating kind of this sustainable cycle. One of the biggest joys we experience is watching our graduates give back. And this happens in various ways, like welcoming a new graduate into their community, or taking dinner to a sick neighbor, tending a garden, serving at an event, or riding a bicycle 4,000 miles across the country to raise awareness and funds for the new transitioning youth home for Providence Network. And this may sound too crazy to be true, but this is exactly what one of our graduates, Spencer Nee, has just accomplished. For those of you that were here last year at this luncheon, you remember hearing Spencer tell his story, his journey from near death to a career as an ER nurse. help me now welcome back to the stage as he shares how he spent his summer vacation. Spencer Nee.
Thank you. Thank you. So a lot of people have asked me if this trip was inspired by the movie Forrest Gump. I tell them no, I just felt like biking. That's my best impression. So why is it important to give back? Close your eyes and picture yourself waking up on the floor of a motel room, realizing you can't remember the last week of your life. You look around and there are empty bottles, ashtrays, and bodies with strange-smelling people snoring next to you on the floor. You get up and your foot starts to throb. You remember it is broken and hasn't healed in months, probably because you don't eat very often since it makes you too sick. You notice your hands are shaking and you feel a sense of impending doom. It is winter. You can see your breath inside the motel and notice snow beyond the dirty sheet that covers the window. You try to remember how you got there, but the memories are fuzzy. As you start to wake up, you begin to recall being a child with loving parents living in a great neighborhood. You vaguely recall swim practices and debate tournaments, family dinners around the table every night, and trips to museums. Yet, you can't remember when you talked to your parents last, as the days of living this nightmare became months and then years. You hear a heavy knock, and it is the manager of the motel. You are shuffled out into the snow as he threatens to call the police for trespassing. You believe you can make it through the day if you can find somewhere warm and raise enough money for a bottle to get rid of that feeling of absolute terror. You feel so much shame, but without another bottle, the shaking will get worse and might even kill you. I didn't believe there was a way out of that life, not until I found Providence Network. That's when everything started to change. After living at 2 different Providence Network homes, I found myself reconnected to my family as if those terrible years never happened. I had a home, a career, a purpose, and health. It was all restored. I couldn't help but think of all the young people out there still waking up in terror and believing that there will never be a way out. And unlike me, most of them have no family to go back to. How could I not give back when I was given back my very life? About 3 years ago, I started to plan and dream of a way of giving back in a major way. On May 1st, I found myself standing at the Golden Gate Bridge with my bicycle loaded with 140 pounds of gear, full of excitement and uncertainty as to what would lie ahead. My plan was to cross the entire U.S. and talk to people about addictions, film other people in recovery, try to raise funds for Providence Network's new youth home, and spread a little bit of hope. Although it was the most amazing adventure of my life, I was met with many challenges along my journey. The early days brought bitter cold temperatures with chilling rains. Snow and hail would bite my face as I rode into it. I was met with hills so steep I could barely stay on my bike in the lowest gear as I wobbled and gasped for air. There were nights where I would arrive at my destination and my legs would be caked in blood from all the falls. There were mornings where I sat my bruised butt back on the seat and was certain I couldn't stay on there another 10 hours. Then the heat set in. I became so exhausted and dehydrated that I struggled to stay on my bike through the dizziness. There were stretches of road with little water or food. It reminded me of the fear I once faced living on the streets. Numerous times I felt sure I wasn't going to make it, but when those thoughts began to dominate my mind, I met people who were kind and loving. They reminded me of my purpose. I met Jake and Stephanie, a young couple that were camping beside me at the Dolores River, and after telling them about my quest, they opened up about their lives growing up. They were tossed around the foster system and spent their childhoods being raped by the adults that were supposed to protect them. They buried this pain with alcohol and heroin. Jake confessed that he brought Stephanie to this tranquil environment to wean her off of heroin. She was 3 days clean and very dope sick. As I got back on my bike the next morning, they told me how much hope it gave them to hear of my journey to help others. Stephanie promised that if she was sober when I crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, she would come out there and cross it with me. It wasn't just talking to others in recovery that made this trip so special. I received a police escort as I arrived in Lamar, Colorado, where I received my RN degree and worked in the local ER. People lined the streets cheering with banners and signs while community members followed me on their own bikes. One little girl nervously told me that I was her 4-H project and that she plans to show off her pictures of me at the state fair. While another young girl told me she was following my ride because her mom was in prison from heroin. She hoped my ride would help her get well when she gets out. I stayed with artists and farmers. I saw landscapes and sunsets that took my breath away. I made new lasting friendships with other cyclists. I even got to stay on a goat farm in Missouri and tried my hand at milking goats. Smelly but funny, or smelly but fun. Despite all the fun moments, I experienced times where the loneliness of the open road made me think about giving up and drinking. I am far enough in my recovery to catch these thoughts before they become actions, but they still haunt me at times. Being open and honest about it with you and others is how I will continue to heal from this disease. I remember sitting in a small town in the Missouri Ozarks during the 4th of July while families tailgated and lit off firecrackers. I began thinking how nice it would be to drink a beer and have some fun. Holidays can be hard when you're an alcoholic. Just as my anxiety and solitude reached its peak, I was greeted by a man named Wires who had a street ministry and introduced me to a group of young adults in recovery. A teenager talked to me about overcoming his meth addiction by finding Christ, explaining that he was now over a year sober. I shared my story, and one of the girls told me it gave her hope to know that I had been sober over 7 years and was having fun without using or drinking. It was a strange thing to hear, as I had just been struggling, but it reminded me that my story could actually inspire others to hang on. I met Vicky, a waitress in a small town in Pennsylvania, and she introduced me to a little boy sitting in a booth coloring with crayons. This was her great-great-grandson, whom she was now raising because all her kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids were locked up from drugs and alcohol. She explained that a bad batch of heroin had killed half her granddaughter's high school class in one weekend. I passed through hundreds of small towns, and this was the story everywhere. I met mothers who had lost children to addictions, hospital workers overwhelmed by all the young people overdosing in the ERs, and cities filled with homeless teens. Drug addiction has reached epidemic levels in our nation, and I was overwhelmed to meet the families it has destroyed, see tears roll down their faces, and feel their pain. I stayed at a recovery home in Pennsylvania full of teenagers and young adults, and the residents cooked me an amazing meal. I shared my testimony around a bonfire under the stars. They circled around and prayed for me. One guy came to tears as he explained that he had needed to hear what I had to say. Later in the evening, I was approached by several others who told me I had also encouraged them to hang on and stay sober. I met so many good people, over 4,000 miles of pedaling through 14 states. I had people buy and cook me meals, bake me cookies, open their homes to me, protect me while driving, pray for me, send me encouraging emails and texts, donate to my cause, and open their lives and hearts to a dirty stranger with a bicycle and a dream. I was met with so many smiles and hugs and laughs and random acts of kindness that I will never again see the world in the same way. This is indeed a beautiful country full of good and wholesome people. On August 22nd, the day I had been dreaming about for years arrived, and I rolled through the busy streets of New York, dodging taxi cabs and traffic until I approached the Brooklyn Bridge. I got a text from Jake and Stephanie, the couple I had met along the Dolores River. They explained they had been sober over 60 days and thought of me every day because my ride inspired them to stay sober. They said that they couldn't afford to drive to New York, but they were crossing the bridge with me in spirit and holding my hand as I reached the finish line. My parents flew out for the occasion. My friend Ted drove 6 hours, and Karen and Denise, 2 staff members from Providence Network, flew out and cheered me on with encouraging signs as I crossed the bridge. My mom, who had once accepted the loss of her little boy, rented a bike and rode proudly next to me across the bridge. We were greeted by the loving arms of my dad at the other end, while Ted, Karen, and Denise cheered behind us. Our family has been restored, and it was one of the best days of my life. So why is it important to give back? I want other kids to feel the way I felt on that day, to get a second chance at life. I want other families to be reunited as mine has. Providence Network not only saved my life, but gave me a life that is meaningful and rewarding and full of adventures. So give to them and give generously so that other young people can repair and mend and heal and give back as I have. Thank you and God bless.
Another amazing story, and Spencer, thank you, and just impressed how not only what a physical feat, mental feat that was, but just the way that God wove certain people and places in your path that became a story of redemption and reconciliation for many other people beyond yourself. So thank you. Next, I would like to introduce another member of our family, Clayton Kamosi. Clayton and his wife, Ashley, have been Community of Providence members for many years. And Ashley was on our staff for over 3 years until their son, Luca, was born. Clayton, will you please come up here and join me?
I want to begin by taking a moment to honor Spencer. What a tremendous story. I'm thankful for the person you have become and believe your journey and courage will continue to offer the staff, donors, residents, board members, and volunteers of Prov the hope and desire to take another step forward. Thank you, Spencer, for the privilege to share a part in your life. I was first introduced to Providence Network through my wife, Ashley, when she started working on the development team in the fall of 2008. I could tell my wife was immediately inspired and captivated by the mission of Prov. And so, with a little added enthusiasm, prodding, and unnecessary high school cheerleader moves, we decided to support Prov. But I must be honest, we gave in the beginning because we could check all the boxes. Great organization, self-sustaining model, economically viable, money is properly allocated, and of course, lives changed and transformed. We believed in the purpose and loved supporting a ministry in our backyard. While all of those checked boxes are important reasons to give, and in our opinion, a necessary part of the giving equation, the catch is this: we continue to give as a Community of Providence member because, whether big or small, all of our lives are changed. My wife and I are changed in many ways because of Providence Network. We are changed because we no longer look at homeless situations, a person with addiction, or a person escaping abuse in the same way. We believe there is hope and a God-given right to a second, third, or 13th chance at a new life. And we believe hope is found in the loving community and live-in staff that are genuinely committed and dedicated to helping a person wake up in the morning and take another day sober and free of abuse. We are changed because we have witnessed real life happen. We have cried in the company of residents sharing testimony of heartache, loss, and despair, and have also seen relationships restored and residents honored and recognized for their value and importance in this world. Prov is a part of it all. We are changed because of the staff at Providence who continually challenge us to live life more mission-minded. And we speak to the staff's honest devotion and love for this organization. We have heard Derek spill his heart for the growth and purpose of Providence. For those of you who know Denise, she practically bleeds the colors of Prov everywhere she goes. Her authentic passion for this ministry is contagious. And just the other week, my wife and I were both captivated by Andy Cannon and Jennifer Sheedy at a Tuesday night house meeting, Both had tears in their eyes at different points during the evening and spoke with genuine care for those they have the honor to walk with. All this to say, the staff has changed too. Finally, we give because we love Prov. As mentioned before, we give because we believe this organization is worthy to support and will continue to give because not only are residents forever changed, but many of you in this room are forever changed as well. This afternoon is a great opportunity to celebrate the wonderful work and people of Prov, and also experience God's immense love for us all. He truly is the author and sustainer of a free and sober life, and we believe he continually uses Providence Network to accomplish restoration and healing. Thank you.